To truly attune ourselves to a chakra, it is essential to have some understanding of our body's anatomical structure. When one's energy center is very weak, they are likely to experience health issues and suffering. Opening an energy center can often result in a loss of strength. As the chakra expands, it begins to radiate energy outward. The energy dissipates into the surrounding space, leaving an individual depleted. Those who don't practice spirituality tend to use abusive language, indulge in alcohol, often experience anger, feel dissatisfied with life, and whatnot. They are low-frequency beings. In a constant attempt to compensate for this, their chakras lose energy. It's important to know how to work with them. To use them properly, we apply specific techniques of Kriya Yoga. Chakras. Chakras have long fascinated people. There is something inherently captivating about them. What precisely is it that attracts people to chakras? It's the possibilities they open. They grant superpowers. People are naturally drawn to such powers. This is why they endeavor to awaken individual centers or even to activate all the chakras at once. In fact, the entire yogic tradition is founded on the principle of guiding an individual towards the awakening of these centers. And indeed, they unlock the creative potential in people. They activate dormant faculties within a person that we call a creative power. We might view them as special instruments entrusted to us by the higher power, meant to be used wisely. Yet the desire to open chakras solely for the sake of acquiring superpowers is rooted in ego. And this is where caution is needed. In such cases, these centers often close rather than open. Chakras are not solely concerned with activating these centers to awaken creative potential, revealing one's latent abilities. Chakras also provide energy to the organs situated nearby, ensuring their proper functioning. Take, for instance, the Svadhisthana chakra. It is located in the lower abdomen. The organs in this region influenced by the Svadhisthana are nourished by its energy. These include the adrenal glands, kidneys, bladder, reproductive organs, the lower section of the small intestine, and the large intestine. Muladhara also plays a role in this process. To truly attune ourselves to a chakra, it is essential to have some understanding of our body's anatomical structure. It's impossible to find a chakra because chakras are astral in nature. They are projections from the astral realm. They are not even distinctly present on the etheric plane, and certainly not visible to the physical eye. It exists on a very subtle level. But what is the nature of chakras? Where are they located? If we were to consult an anatomy atlas and turn to the section on human innervation, or examine nerve plexuses and nerve endings, we would observe a series of nerve centers or ganglia aligned along the spine. These nerve plexuses correspond to the points at which these centers are found on the subtle plane. Chakras manifest in those specific regions because, for the subtle energy, they channel to express itself in the material realm. Fine energy channels, bypasses, and subtle networks or bundles are required. At a more physical level, this phenomenon can be likened to an electrical field or electrical current passing through nerve plexuses. We are familiar with the solar plexus. This area corresponds to the Manipura chakra. Most people are familiar with the solar plexus. A blow to this area can cause considerable discomfort. But similar nerve clusters exist both above and below this point. While the traditional model recognizes 7 chakras, in reality there are far more, vastly more. Few know that each joint in the body generates a vortex-like energy field. Here in the little finger, for example, we have 1, 2, 3 chakras. This finger alone has 3 chakras. And how many joints do we have? We have 64 joints. At the joints and points of articulation, chakras create energy vortices of varying intensity. A chakra is an expression of a bundle of energy. Take, for example, the knee joint. Many people experience issues with knee joints. Why? They often suffer from knee pain and related issues. They usually talk about the meniscus and the physical problems associated with it. Yet few realize that this is also a point of energy concentration. It houses a knee chakra. Above or below the knee is not really important. It's an energy center. The same applies to other joints, like those linking the ankle to the foot. It also forms a chakra. As mentioned earlier, all joints can be regarded as energy centers, and it is essential to preserve them. Many people have a habit of stretching or pulling their fingers, and in doing so, they activate these energy pathways. In practices such as Qigong or yoga, there are exercises designed for this purpose. For example, the 27th Kriya involves the shaking of the arms to help open energy channels. Qigong includes similar techniques to enhance our connection with space, to allow energy to nourish our centers, and most crucially, the main energy centers, the chakras, so that they may become more active. What else should one know about chakras? Chakras are our internal reserve of energy. These energy centers, located within or existing on the subtle plane, offer us a limited supply of energy. When one's energy center is very weak, or not sufficiently nourished due to life circumstances, they are likely to experience health issues and suffering. It is understood that there is a deficiency of energy within that specific center. For example, if someone has weak kidneys, it is often said that there is a shortage of energy in the system, in the corresponding center. Similarly, if a person has heart issues, it suggests that the Anahata chakra claims attention. This is why, before attempting to open an energy center, it is essential to understand what we are actually doing. Opening an energy center can often result in a loss of strength. As the chakra expands, it begins to radiate energy outward. The energy dissipates into the surrounding space, leaving an individual depleted. In order for the center to be nourished, one must engage in spiritual practice. Through such practice, we learn to channel energy to each center, so that it may in turn supply the organs within its sphere of influence. And preventively, we should also channel energy to all our centers. To achieve this, we can perform body energization exercises, Guru Pranam, and various other techniques. In Sanskrit, the word chakra means a wheel, a bundle of energy. In addition to energy, chakras also carry information. A chakra, within its radius of influence, nourishes the nearby organs and transmits information that originates from the astral plane. This information is essential for the proper functioning of the cells. Without this informational input from the chakras, the body's cells would lack instructions. For example, a cell might not divide or perform its life-sustaining functions. In this sense, chakras have an established connection with a higher order of energy. That issues direct commands or provides guidance to the body. This energy manifests in a more material form, finally transforming into energy centers, and from there it is translated into a vital flow that sustains the entire organism. In truth, the human being could be viewed as one vast chakra. However, it is traditionally believed that there are 7 chakras or centers of energy. Much is written about them in yogic texts. Yet few people know that we also have chakras beyond the physical body, on the subtle plane. There are more than 13 principal chakras. There are also chakras that we frequently engage in everyday life without realizing it. For example, thymus. Similarly, certain areas of the brain, such as the pineal gland and pituitary gland, function as centers housing specific powers. These too are considered chakras. There are even more mystical centers, for example, the Lalana chakra. It is often awakened through a technique known as Amritpan. When activated, this chakra bestows particular inner qualities. Within the head, there are also several bindu points. They are also regarded as chakras. We have a lot of energy centers. We have 64 joints in the body. All of them are energy centers. It's important to know how to work with them. To use them properly, we apply specific techniques, in this context, those of Kriya Yoga, although similar techniques are also present in Raja Yoga. The system of Kriya we practice incorporates all the essential elements of Raja Yoga, uniting them into a coherent, all-embracing method. The commonly known chakras, Muladhara, Svadhisthana, Manipura, Anahata, Vishuddha, Ajna or Agya, and Sahasrara, are the primary centers recognized in most yogic traditions that practitioners typically engage with. However, in reality, all of them are connected with numerous subcenters situated between them. For example, between Sahasrara and Ajna chakras, there are several auxiliary chakras. Between Vishuddha and Ajna, there exists the Lalana chakra, as previously mentioned. Similarly, between Anahata and Vishuddha, there are additional chakras too. In the Chinese tradition, there is a concept known as hara, which integrates 3 energy centers. These correspond to what is called the dantian. It is known as the sea of energy. It represents the lower bubble. There is also the middle bubble and the upper bubble. These 3 bubbles unite chakras. However, to access these bubbles, one must first engage with a number of intermediary points that practitioners focus on and work with. These auxiliary centers serve to channel energy to the primary chakras. This is an important aspect. When we awaken these centers through spiritual practice, we activate specific mechanisms that primarily support the healing of the chakras, and consequently the healing of the entire body. As I have mentioned before, if for any reason energy begins to leak from a chakra, our inner reserve, the individual's vitality will gradually diminish, potentially to the point of death. For instance, if a paranormalist tells you that your heart chakra is closed, you might well laugh at them, because a chakra cannot be closed. It may be functioning with reduced potential. If it were truly closed, the body would no longer survive. Chakras cannot be closed. Be cautious not to be fooled by such individuals. Some people attempt to access altered states of consciousness, also known as trips, by using various substances. It has become a fashionable trend nowadays. But when this experience fades, many report that when they wake up or return from these trips, they feel drained or empty. And what does that actually mean? When people take various substances, energy from the chakras, from that inner reserve, is forcibly extracted through chemical means and used as a form of compensation. It may appear as though the person is on a trip, experiencing hallucinations. But in reality, this energy becomes hyperactivated to compensate for issues linked to the suppression of the personality, or to the overstimulation and exhaustion of the brain's natural energy and capacities. Ultimately, this state is a form of intoxication. This is why we firmly oppose the use of any substance that claims to induce spiritual realization. It has never happened, and it never will. What in fact does happen? An intense release of energy that is meant to remain within the chakras to sustain life. In that moment, the chakra is drained. Yes, a small amount of energy may remain, acting as a form of compensation. This is why people often wake up feeling drained, and it may take a month or more to fully recover their strength. It is a deeply harmful and dangerous practice, and its risks are rarely explained to those who pursue it. Those seeking to open the centers for spiritual highs often find themselves facing unwelcome consequences. When energy in the chakras is depleted, the life currents flowing through the body also diminish. As a result, organs and internal systems begin to suffer. The body deteriorates, and illness sets in. Most importantly, the protective shell, the human aura, becomes thin. This is why proper nutrition, correct breathing, and right thinking form the essential foundation for balanced chakras. These are the first principles by which one must live. Only once the chakras become stable, nourished, and energetically strong can superpowers begin to emerge. This is when a person may find themselves capable of writing poetry, composing music, creating other forms of art, or even practicing healing, as some bioenergetic therapists now do. To offer real energetic assistance to another person, one must possess a reserve at least 2.5 times greater. Because in giving energy, one must also understand how to preserve one's own strength. Moreover, this energetic reserve is needed to prevent the absorption of another person's negative energy and to avoid transmitting it to someone else. This is an entire science in itself, and chakras govern these processes. Chakras. There is one crucial point I wish to emphasize. Much has been spoken about the so-called superpowers associated with the chakra system. Books on yoga frequently discuss them. However, what is not written in books is this. Each chakra represents a level of consciousness. When we say that a person has attained a certain level of consciousness, we mean that they have reached a plane that corresponds to a specific chakra. Put simply, if a person consistently holds elevated thoughts, feels love for others, remains conscious of the principles of unconditional love, and lives by those principles, perceiving the world through that lens, it means their energy is anchored in the heart center. The great spiritual teachers of the world, those who came bearing the message, "Love thy neighbor," directed us, at the very least, to the level of the Anahata chakra. It is not a matter of mechanically raising energy. The point is to establish communication between consciousness and that plane. A chakra is more than an energy center. It shapes our worldview. Each chakra corresponds to a particular level of consciousness, enabling a person to access specific creative centers through which they can perceive the plane on which that chakra resides. Here's an example. The Muladhara chakra corresponds to the physical world that we directly perceive, which is why most people remain anchored to it. The Svadhisthana chakra encompasses both the physical and the etheric planes. It governs sensation around the body, our feelings, appetence, and even lust, all of which are expressions of Svadhisthana, still closely tied to the material world. A higher chakra, when active, can manifest in a negative way. When someone is craving for power at any cost, they activate their Manipura. Chakras regulate these aspects, functioning as conduits of information. When imbalances occur on the mental or spiritual causal planes, those distortions crystallize through the corresponding chakras, eventually manifesting in the body. In this way, the body begins to suffer. Illness, therefore, reflects disharmony on the astral or mental planes. Take, for instance, warts. In childhood, many children develop them. And not only in childhood, some people seem prone to them throughout life. Toads are superstitiously blamed for those issues. In truth, a wart represents an issue on the lower astral plane, an issue related to information. Whenever something begins to grow on the body, such as a tumor, and a wart, after all, is a small tumor. It signals that a person carries an unresolved program on the astral plane, one they have yet to confront or work through. Once this program is addressed and resolved, the growth ceases. Chakras play a direct role in this process. Chakras are expressions of our levels of consciousness. If a person is preoccupied with power or dominated by negativity, it is the manifestation of the negative aspect of the third chakra, Manipura, that is associated with fire and can begin to consume the body, leading to burnout and destroying it. People then encounter problems. If someone suffers from lung-related issues, the root often lies in the Anahata chakra. Vishuddha may also be involved to a degree, but one must work with Anahata. Why do lungs weaken? Why do people develop lung-related issues? Because grief has taken hold. And why does grief settle in? Because they feel wounded or offended. This negative program weakens the chakra, which in turn ceases to nourish the lungs. The health issue they have developed is a signal from the body. For example, kidneys and adrenal glands are primarily governed by the Svadhisthana chakra, though Muladhara also plays a part. Suppose a child was once frightened, or an adult experienced intense fear. In such moments, energy is expelled. They can't fully regain it because fear continues to haunt them. It launches a certain program. Fear destroys the kidneys. The kidneys are closely connected to the sense of hearing. When the kidneys are weak, it may manifest not only as diminished physical hearing, but also as an impaired capacity to perceive the subtle, more refined sounds of higher realms. If a person has a weak liver or congested parenchyma, their vision deteriorates. Hence, in Chinese medicine, there are techniques and approaches aimed at nourishing the liver, kidneys, and other internal organs. They don't speak of chakras. This is a different system. It's simpler. The Indian tradition is focused on energy centers. It is not limited to the 7 primary chakras, but deals with other chakras as well. It is more intricate, yet also more universal. In this respect, the Chinese tradition offers a simpler approach, and perhaps they are right in their own way. It may be more practical for everyday life. Our chakras are responsible not only for sustaining our vital energy, but also for our creative capacities and the evolution of consciousness. These energy centers enable us to perceive realms beyond the ordinary visible world. This becomes accessible through meditation. Moreover, these centers serve as channels for acquiring knowledge, cosmic knowledge, including insights into both the future and the past. You see? It is crucial that there are no imbalances. What do imbalances in practice look like? For example, someone might focus on developing their mental faculties while their body remains weak. They may have a brilliant mind, yet they're so frail that the wind could knock them over. What's the value in that? I believe that true balance lies in cultivating all aspects of oneself, on all planes and levels, in a steady and harmonious way. For example, in people with a particular body type, those who are slender and sensitive to cold, the wind element predominates. Such a person will struggle to maintain stability on the mental and emotional planes. The imbalance is obvious. This example illustrates it clearly. A person with such a constitution needs to modify their diet, include more fats if they are underweight, regulate water intake, and engage in spiritual practice. This person should accumulate fat to increase their weight. Clean fat, not just any fat. The body must be detoxified, otherwise no lasting benefit can be achieved. The body's building material must be pure. That was an example, and the same principle applies here. If we focus on developing the upper chakras while neglecting the lower ones, the upper centers will not function properly. The lower chakras form the foundation. This is like building walls and a roof on crumbling ground. Eventually, the entire structure may collapse. The harmonious functioning of the body, both physical and mental, and the proper activity of Vishuddha and Ajna depend on the balance of Muladhara, Svadhisthana, and Manipura. Upper chakras cannot function properly without that vital flow of energy from below. The life force energy dissipates. I am speaking about an ordinary person living a typical worldly life. When it comes to masters, the situation is quite different. Masters transcend the chakras. It's them who direct chakra functioning. Their consciousness is so advanced that they can shift their assemblage point to the higher centers, leaving the lower ones behind. This is why some masters have chosen to leave their physical bodies, whether through cancer or simply by will, because they were no longer present in those centers. Their purpose was different. Yet physical health resides primarily in the three lower centers. When one is physically healthy, then their upper energy centers, the heart center, the throat center, and so on, will also function properly. This is a key understanding. Everything is interrelated. Now, in Kriya practice, we treat our vessel of transcendental power, the brain, medulla oblongata, and spine, as a single chakra. That is our perspective. Even in the early stages of practice, we recognize the existence of individual centers, but at a more advanced level, they are perceived as one unified chakra. To fill this vessel with energy, we draw energy upwards. If this energy rises only as far as the third chakra and goes no further, the person will not be able to sustain a balanced life. Certainly there is energy present, but it is insufficient. As a result, the person will fall into a tamasic state. Their mind becomes sluggish. They may feel drowsy and mentally drained. In contrast, when the vessel is filled to the brim, all the chakras function in harmony. That's how it should be. Only masters possess the ability to regulate this process, directing energy at will, withdrawing attention from chakras, raising the energy, and concentrating it in specific centers. This depends entirely on the individual's intent, what the master aims to achieve in their purpose. Human anatomy. The body is our temple. Why do I call it that? Because we possess a soul, and that soul is present here. In yogic tradition, the body is considered a temple. But it is a manifested temple, meaning we can perceive it. We can feel the various parts of the body. Most people go through life without ever truly understanding what this body actually is. Why are fingers shaped in this particular way? Why does the body take this form? Why do some bodies change? Why are some children born with unusual physical structures, sometimes with abnormalities? All of this pertains to the physically manifested world, to our anatomy. People study anatomy in medical schools and universities. Modern science has mapped the human body in great detail from an anatomical perspective, but very few understand why, for example, the foot is shaped in this way, or why the body has taken this precise form. The truth is this: our body temple, the body, is direct evidence of the presence of energy, of a cosmic force. Our body is in fact energy in a compressed form. That energy which we do not know or see, and yet desire to perceive, is present here and now. Our anatomy is a unified expression of all forms of energy, now visible to us in the shape of the human body. For this reason, yoga regards our body temple as a microcosm. There exists a macrostructure, the universe, and it is fully reflected within the human form. Every part of the body is an expression of universal law. This calls for deep study. Why does blood circulate? Why are there venous and arterial systems? There are so many whys. What's the purpose of all this? Modern medicine has advanced significantly, and scientists know a great deal about our physiology. And yet, even today, Few truly grasp why the medulla oblongata, which resides in the lower region of the brain and is often overlooked, actually holds such enormous significance, governing nearly every function of the human body. Medulla oblongata. Now let me explain another key point. Energy that pervades all space, at some stage, has become more materially manifested. This moment marks the process of creation through which the human being comes into existence. This energy expresses itself as the 5 elements, or 5 types of energy. In yoga, these are known as prana, apana, vyana, udana, samana. 5 elements. What are they? They are earth, water, fire, air, and ether. From ether, that boundless space, energies began to emerge and condense. As these energies reached their densest state, they began to take form as a unified whole of all 5 energies, ultimately becoming atoms. Atoms combined into molecules, cells, organs, and systems. Yet within every atom lies encoded information about how the body should be constructed. Every single cell carries the complete knowledge of the universe. This is how the subtle world shapes our physical temple. People go through life unaware of why the law of breathing functions as it does, why we breathe in and out. We may be engaged in some activity, yet our body temple keeps its rhythm. Every cell beats to that rhythm. As we sleep, we do not regulate our breathing, and yet it flows. Why does this happen at all? Who governs this process? Who causes a person to turn in their sleep, to shift positions? It certainly isn't the conscious mind. We don't even remember doing it. But it happens. This brings us to an essential truth. We possess consciousness, a self-aware presence that orchestrates these processes. And beyond this consciousness lies superconsciousness, and this is our true nature that has manifested itself through the body. Today, surgery can be performed on any part of the body. Surgeons operate on the physical body. Most of them know little, if anything, about the etheric or astral bodies. And yet, we know that when a person loses a limb, they often experience phantom pain. The arm is gone, but it hurts. This is a common phenomenon. It causes real suffering. Yogis know that the physical arm may be lost, but the energy once embodied in that arm persists. It is still there, and it still transmits impulses. That's why the individual feels physical pain in a limb that no longer exists. This reveals the presence of an astral and emotional component. The phantom pain that people experience in an arm or leg that has been removed is direct evidence of an aura, of subtle energy still acting within. The only body part that doesn't cause pain when severed is the head, because without it we cannot register the sensation. By the way, in ancient times, decapitation was considered the most humane method of execution. Of all the practices, it was seen as the quickest process. It instantaneously severs all physical and subtle connections, like switching off the lights. So yes, people can feel pain in a limb that's no longer there. What kind of phenomenon is this? Phantom pains. That's the name by which it is known. Sensations from something that doesn't exist. There is no limb. How can it cause pain? Eventually the pain fades, because the energy previously manifested in the limb gradually dissipates. Consciousness rewires the system to function without that limb. Consider someone with low physical activity. Over time, their body temple gradually weakens. Why? Because the body, as it seems to the brain, is no longer needed in the same way. The individual is fully engaged in mental activity. They are a thinker who neglects their physical body. But over time, muscles become weak and flabby, and aging accelerates. Why? Because they develop one level of consciousness, while bodily consciousness is being ignored. They nurture their mental faculties, yet their body remains neglected. The body adapts accordingly, reducing function to only the most essential, enough to sit, lie down, stand, and stay upright. Nature is remarkably efficient. Why am I pointing this out? Our body temple is our guide, helping us navigate the manifested universe. We must honor and develop the body. This is why spiritual practices that involve extended periods of meditation must be balanced with physical activity. At least 1 hour of movement is essential. For example, Tibetan monks who spend extended periods in retreats in the Himalayas, a rocky and freezing environment where walking is difficult, dedicate an hour each day to marching in place. They combine this with breathing exercises to stimulate energy channels. Without such compensation, the body would grow cold and frail, making it difficult to sustain life within it. This is a simple physical peculiarity. Now let me add, our body also contains an informational component. Strange as it may sound, our anatomy is a materialized expression of information. As mentioned earlier, the physical body is a compressed embodiment of all forms of energy. Through this body, we directly receive information about realms we cannot perceive with the physical eye. Through this body, we come to know the materially manifested laws of the universe. For instance, when the moon draws closest to Earth in its orbit, noticeable changes begin to occur within the body. People feel them, they manifest physically. This reveals the profound influence the sun and the moon exert over our biochemistry, even though we are seemingly only physical beings. But why does this happen? Why at such times does the hormonal system shift? Why do certain energy centers become activated? It all comes down to magnetism and electricity. The sun represents the force of electricity, the moon the force of magnetism, two opposing poles. When they interact with us, they stir changes within the body. This suggests that we are informational beings as well. The human body is like a beacon for the energies that circulate in space. These energies flow through space and in doing so, affect us directly, allowing us to realize the principles of cosmic interaction. In other words, through the body, this magnificent instrument, we can access knowledge. And yet we often reduce it to mere physics. What does this mean? We think that the body is something to train or exercise. But this is a primitive use of this instrument. The most basic approach to the body is to focus solely on the physical plane, neglecting the development of the etheric and astral layers, the more subtle dimensions of our being. Those who practice yoga cultivate these subtle bodies, and through them gain mastery over the physical form. I have witnessed this firsthand and can speak from my own experience. By cultivating the subtle bodies through pranayama practice, the process of aging slows down and the feeling of fatigue is greatly reduced. One can work and work tirelessly. Moreover, the body itself begins to behave in quite a different manner, positively so. And to some extent, it begins to defy the laws of nature or physics. This is a widespread phenomenon. By way of comparison, I can say that correct breathing in Kriya, secret breathing in Kriya Yoga, when performed with the proper regimen and concentration, leads to the disappearance of venous blood. This goes entirely against the laws of physics and anatomy. It is a given that the human body contains both arterial and venous blood. Venous blood is impure. It requires purification. If a person, for example, uses their body, the body temple as yoga views it, wisely they can bring the lungs and heart to a state of rest, freeing them from strain purely through the practice of pranayama and proper breathing. In this state, toxins and waste products begin to be eliminated naturally. The blood purifies itself, and venous blood begins to transform. Do you understand what this implies? If such a person were to undergo comprehensive medical tests, doctors might find no trace of venous blood in their samples. This would indicate a transformation of the person's physiology. Their breathing rate becomes drastically reduced. Now compare this to an ordinary person. When the blood is contaminated, when it carries toxins and waste, the heart must constantly contract in order to circulate and purify the blood, and this puts an increased strain on the heart. We know of the small and large circulatory loops. The blood must be cleansed somehow, and this process puts a strain on the heart and other organs. Every organ involved in detoxification is placed under considerable strain, hence the need for proper diet and proper breathing. If a person practices special Kriya pranayamas, over time their blood composition begins to change. It becomes cleaner. The heart no longer needs to work as hard, nor do the lungs or the liver. In this way, a person's physiology is transformed, and the number of respiratory cycles per minute begins to drop. And when that number drops, the length of one's life increases. That's the whole secret. Here we see a direct link to physiology. This is why the body temple requires transformation, and this transformation is possible through the correct attitude towards the body. Proper breathing, proper nutrition, and the practice of Kriya Yoga aimed at refining this body temple. By consciously working with the body, we also begin to bring the etheric and astral layers under control. When a person's physical body is in balance, their energy centers are also balanced. From there, the practitioner can access subtler levels of perception. What is a subtler level of perception? Perceiving the very energy from which the body is formed. At this stage, we start to perceive the focal point of this energy and become aware of its origin. Within the human body, the centers of this focused energy are the chakras. When we begin to grasp what this or that chakra truly is, we start to feel it on the subtle plane and realize how it interacts with the sublime consciousness and what the sublime consciousness calls us to become. In this way, we move into a subtler level of our own evolution. The evolution begins to accelerate not by days but by hours. Through these centers, we gain insight into the state of our consciousness, and as we continue to awaken, we move closer to a deep awareness of our true nature. That is the real purpose of yoga.